implemented to the advantage of Nigerians. Therefore, there's a huge gap of this deficit that I know various arm of government should be working towards in closing it. And of course, federal government, if you notice, recently during this pandemic, there's a sustainable program that is being worked on to ensure that this gap is equally closed. And one of the cardinal points of that sustainable program is housing. And looking at it with design, putting into consideration the culture, the tradition, and requirements of citizenry. So I know after a few months now, we'll see federal government coming up. And narrowing it down to Ogun State, we know that the present administration is already coming up with various housing schemes. And very soon, I know they're going to be working with Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria in assisting eligible contributors to access National Housing Fund products. So that I can say for now.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Fashoyin. Let's go on this short break. When we come back, Mr. DG Ogundimo, a property developer, will also join us.
The Ogun State government has observed with dismay illegal activities on gas pipelines across the state by unscrupulous residents. Such unacceptable behavior include erection of structures, among other forms of social and commercial activities on these gas pipelines. These acts are extremely dangerous and are capable of undermining the safety and security of not just the perpetrators, but innocent and unsuspecting residents of host communities. The present administration views these blatant violations with great concern and is therefore calling on perpetrators of such illegal acts to desist forthwith or risk immediate arrest and prosecution by security agencies. Leaders of communities where such gas pipelines pass through are advised to report to security agencies nearest to them. Stay away from acts that endanger your life and that of others. Announcer, Ogun State Government.
Yes, welcome back. And in the studio, we have Mr. DG Ogundimo, property developer. Many thanks for coming.
You're welcome. Sorry for coming.
Before we went on that break, Mr. Olufemi Fashoyin, beg your pardon, gave us a fine background to the topic, housing deficit, mortgage financing to the rescue. So, Mr. Ogundimo, how worrying is the housing deficit in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. Housing deficit is not only issue with Nigeria, it's even in the so-called developed world. everybody needs a shelter, at least a moderate shelter to put their heads in. But for various reasons, the Nigerian issue is becoming more and more worrisome, in the sense that successive governments have been paying lip service to issue of balancing and reducing housing deficit through various policy somersault and unfulfilling promises regarding housing policy. When you look at the issue about mortgaging in Nigeria, when you're talking about providing an affordable home, what can make a home or a house or a shelter for any human being affordable is the ability to get a decent accommodation that can be financed by an institution or an organization. Not everybody has the financial wherewithal to start the construction of a house and complete with his own financial might. There should be organizations like mortgage banks and financial mortgage institutions that can come to the rescue of people in providing financial assistance that can be spread for a period of long lease or financial lease to be able to get an accommodation. But in Nigeria, we have so many issues hindering this. We have the interest rate, we have the non-availability of funds, we have several, both government and private mortgage institutions that are just there for the purpose of just being an establishment who are not doing, for whatever reason, what they ought to be doing as mortgage institutions.
Okay, Mr. Fasonyi, looking at you, the other time you were talking about researching or statistics, and the deficit, the numbers keep increasing year in, year out. Do you think how we research is the normal way we should research? Because we see houses, when you go here, you see new sites, new environment, people building houses. So you still, the researchers are still telling us that there are deficits. But when you go to communities, areas, there are new houses coming up. Do you think we should do more about our research and statistics?
Thank you for the question. From my own perspective, the necessary machinery for a look-alike research is not equally in place, particularly from the local to the state to the federal. Then the institution that is required, even if it is in place on paper, they are not being deployed to achieve the purpose, the target. For example, in Ogun State, if you ask Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban whatever, they may not be able to tell you in the research what, for example, your houses, how many housing units do we have? Why did you have them? And for what purpose? What is the design for this layer, for this environment? You see, for every planning, there must be a purpose. You design it for a purpose, and for who? Who are the target audience? So in a situation that you cannot even have enough data that will tell you at a particular time and with your projection, this is the number of people required to require this number of houses, how do you now come to implementation? So what we have here in Nigeria per se is more of informal housing development, whereas everybody struggle to bring in their resources and put whatever they deem fit, not in line with the type of society that every one of us look at. But when you have a formal environment, formal arrangement, you can determine. For example, in this environment where you are now, you have some estates. You have media estate, you have MPHS, and other programs going on. A developer is here, he has his own. He determines from the beginning how many house type, what type, how many units is going to produce, and is guided to the extent that you'll be able to determine how many people will constitute an household. But what we have as a statistics saying it's a deficit is a function of what? What are the variables that have been considered to arrive at these deficit figures? So our research institute, particularly every tiers of government, need to empower their planning and research department or unit to be able to go to the basis, ask basic questions. Who and who require a house? At what age do you need a home or house? What house type can be designed and developed? At what point can you assess it? What are the financial windows that are available? Which type, from our forefathers we have Isusu, you have other forms of helping the citizen to own properties there and there. In Nigeria today, most of us, we read, as a matter of fact, as academic purpose, what is mortgage. Most of us have not experienced it. And we have the institutions here. We are not making use of them. Even some of us have asked to take credit. The moment you mention credit to some people like this, they run away. They say, no, Baba mi o je gbese. My father has never owned. Why should I own? So this tradition, there is a need for total reorientation. As the institution is doing the planning, then the citizenry should be reorientated to make use of.
Mr. Ogutimu, you are a property developer.
Property consultant.
Property consultant. Yeah. We want to know what is the ratio. We are talking about housing deficit now. What should be the ratio if you want to say there is housing deficit in a particular community or in a particular environment? For instance, in Ogun State, if you want to say there's housing deficit, what ratio should we look at? The house and the people, what ratio should be in between them?
I want to just humbly in this regard not rely on any form of statistics, because when you want to talk about ratio and balancing the deficit and the gap as it is, you need to rely on a particular data. There are no available data. So all of us, it has become a norm in Nigeria when you're talking about policy and you're talking about statistics. Everybody, it is becoming the norms in Nigeria when you're talking about, especially when you're talking in public about issue that has to do with statistics. Everybody will now conveniently sit down and begin to conjure figures and ratio. What data are they relying upon? Who exactly can sit down and say, I have the exact or almost the exact figure of residents of Ibarra, GRA or Ibarra Housing Estate or Omida Ibarra Axis? Who can say authoritatively that I have the statistics of people living in Omida, I have their age grade, I have their... So it's nowhere. So it is becoming a thing of a normal print for everybody to just say 70%, depending on what they want to use that statistics for. Most times they just use it to suit whatever argument they want to present. So
and is that not misleading?
It's misleading, of course. That is just the irony. So if you're asking me about statistics, depending on what I want to do and the answer I want to give to you and what is going to come to me as a benefit from misleading the people as far as that statistics is concerned. I don't have any ratio. The fact is that there are housing deficit, huge deficit. Huge in the sense that when you go everywhere, you see the number of people. When you travel from, let's say, Ibarra, when you travel as much as, let me say, 16, 17, 25 kilometers outside Ibarra, you go as inside as, about 2-3 years ago, we were hearing about Bodeolude. Bodeolude has now extended beyond the boundary and confines of what everybody or some people that are familiar with Bodeolude used to know as Bodeolude. We are now hearing more and more and more and more settlement areas where people can just go and say, okay, this is about 300 square meters. I can just erect block halfway and put bamboo on top, put my wife's wrapper as window, and so that is, so you can't say those people living in that kind of environment are adequately housed. So the deficit extends to that kind of area. When those people cannot access any form of funding from any institution, so where do they go? And that is what is giving the rise
to the proliferation of so many private property companies. A lot of those property companies, we are selling a plot of land for 100 naira. You can pay the 100 naira in 10 years, in 12 months, in 13 months. Most of those property companies are booby traps to just kind of, in some ways, apologies to a lot of them that are doing genuine business. Some of them are doing genuine business to close the gap. But most of them are just into the business to exploit the non-availability of funds, which ought to be taken care of by financial. They are causing more gap. They are causing more problem. Let me give you a scenario. When you approach an individual, telling the individual to come and buy a land from your company that he or she can pay for 12, 13, 16 months, we know the uncertainty surrounding employment in Nigeria, even in the so-called government establishment. People believe when you are working with government, you have a job security. The government cannot wake up today and tell you your job is finished. It's a lie. It's not true. It's not 100% true. So if as a civil servant now, I'm paying you 10 naira every 3, 4, 5 months, and at a particular point, an administrative switch comes up and you were laid off your job, there must be a caveat which are going to be hidden from the people. Definitely, I'm into properties in some cases. I don't go into any form of payment plan with people when you are buying properties, because a lot of uncertainties are surrounding this. When I tell you, you don't pay me my money for next 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and unforeseen circumstances happens, who is going to be at the loss? Definitely the person that is trying to make a payment plan is going to be at loss, because I'm not going to release my property to you when you didn't complete my money. So how much are you going to lose? What ratio, what percentage of the money you have deposited are you going to lose if you are not able to complete the money? All these things are not spelled out. They just tell you terms and conditions applies, and your oga somewhere just lay you off, or something happen, or you lose your job, or you are incapacitated to continue the work and you cannot continue the financing again. You are at loss. So all these things, that is where government should come in and strengthen institutions and make them to be there for people that cannot afford to pay money or have money to build houses that they can live in. If you go inside all these interior places, you will weep for a lot of Nigerians. And that is as a result of government inability or government failure to provide policies. Government cannot build houses for everybody. But government can regulate, government can inform, government can make arrangements, government can strengthen institutions with laws and legislation on how to go about providing homes for the people without at the end of the day siphoning or swindling them.
Okay. Mr. Fashoyin, I know we have many real estate firms. Your own assessment, are they complementing government efforts, or is it just about making profits?
Thank you for your question. For every business outfit, their motive, purpose are well defined. And as such, most of them are for business, profit-oriented. And having said that, it is expected that they should complement government efforts, provided they have been able to key in to government policies. Just like the last speaker said, enabling environment, enabling legislation will, of course, make everybody to fall in to the focus of government. And it will do us well in this part of the world if there is continuity in our policy, in our programs. You see, most times you see this government coming on board with a different program, another one coming on board, jettisoning it, and of course you see it happening every now and then. The issue of property developers or property companies who supposedly needs to complement government efforts, most of them just venture into this business as a result of there's nothing to do. No, they are not professionals. They don't even know what it takes to build a house, to have an estate. Ask most of them, did they even know what an interest is. They can't tell you. And that is why, just like the last speaker said, they draft certain things that were imported, that has not been domiciled there in reality, in many attempts to swindle people, not with the genuine intention of housing people. And of course, you have some of them marketing estates that are not titled. Titling becomes an issue. The issue of homonyless, are you getting me? Even the civil servant makes development even difficult at times for some of these developers. So there is a need for a summit to address all these lacuna so that this deficit can be addressed headlong. Because looking at it, everybody has a role to play. Government has its own, citizens has the role. They should be guided, they should be educated to know who to approach. In a neighboring state, they are doing something like registration, estate registration, just to ensure that people are not being swindled with their hard-earned money. And not only that, even government should make it attractive by implementing policies that will make investors to come in. You have sometimes in a place where they want to get approval for designs, takes times with that number, and they take a lot of resources from people. In that circumstance, you are not encouraging genuine investors to come in. So for us to be able to build and to reduce this deficit, we need to strengthen our institution, like we said. We need to make it attractive by reducing cost of perfection of titling to enable people to access mortgage. As we look at it, that mortgage is to rescue people who have disadvantaged position. You don't need to even put all your money in investment in real estate, in the real sense of it. It is expected that owning a shelter should be a convenient thing for every citizen. And how do you do that? If you can eat, if you can feed yourself, you should be able to own a shelter, particularly when you are 18 years old. And that is why all these mortgage institutions products are very important. We need to ask questions. We need to interrogate what are the financial products that can be accessed by individuals, by citizens. How can you be part of a scheme? Even when a developer is coming up with a scheme, he has a target, he has an audience. How do you come in to be part of that audience? These are things that with a proper regulation can be channeled through, and this deficit can be really addressed. Thank you.
Mr. Fashoya talked about mortgage, the other time. Mortgage is meant to reduce these deficits or gap. But when you look at it nationally, holistically, many Nigerians still don't have access to mortgage loans.
Yeah, that's I proceeded earlier on that most of the financial institutions, most of mortgage institutions, even the so-called Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, it's an open secret what is going on or what is obtained in those institutions. So how many people, you can just do a simple statistics that we have just said earlier on. You can assemble people at any given time and just collect them and ask them questions. How did you come about your house? Have you known or have you seen anybody as part of your friends, colleagues at work, relatives that have benefited from Federal Mortgage Bank finances to build a house? How many people have you seen benefited that? So you can get statistics from that. So even the government has a lot to do. The box of this stands on the table of the government. We cannot personalize government. We cannot personify government. But successive government in Nigeria has been playing politics with things that has to do with the good dividends that should be obtainable from the government to the people that should be given to the people. Look at it, for instance. There are so many residential estates. Take, for instance, Abeokuta. It's in the media about some years ago about houses, several houses in Abuja. They were locked up. They were not being occupied. And we are still here talking about housing deficit. There are houses everywhere. Go to Ibarra Housing Estate. You will see a lot of nice, well-finished, constructed duplexes, bungalows everywhere. Still empty. So what are we talking about? Definitely there must be a policy that is hindering people from getting into those apartments. Maybe the cost, maybe the amount of money you need to put down. You need to get things done according to, you need to get those plans tailored according to the vicinity. You should know the number of people. I was talking to an elder statesman some weeks back about property, about housing deficit in Nigeria. I never knew I'm going to be coming up here to come and be talking about this on air. The man was telling me that what do we do when you are building houses and you expect an average person in Abeokuta, the state capital, to come and pay as much as 8-10 million naira as part payment for a house. What is the peak of somebody that is working for government in Abeokuta, for example, let's say in Ogun State? Let's say a permanent secretary. Can a permanent secretary through his salary afford to pay 10 million naira
as part payment?
As part payment for an apartment or an accommodation or a house that he wants to build? All these things doesn't take rocket science to decipher and just, you know, go about and make solutions if you are really genuinely interested in closing the housing deficit. Why are those houses that are well built, nice built houses, why are they still very much empty everywhere? It's in Abuja, it's in Ogun State, it's in everywhere. So there must be something, there must be government intervention that will reduce drastically. Mortgages abroad, you can afford to have a house once you have a genuine source of income. Once you are working somewhere, there's assurance that definitely there must be something that will not hurt you, that will not hurt your employer, that will be taken from your money, that will be going into your mortgage. You can pay for houses in 12, 15, 20 years over there, and heaven will not fall. Both the developer, both the property investors that build those houses, they will make profit and everybody will be happy. But in Nigeria, both the government and the private investors want to do a business and have 120,000% profit within a very short time. That is why you are seeing a lot of projects being abandoned for so many reasons that cannot be explained even by the so-called people in government. So there are a lot of things that needs to be done through legislation, through genuine intention to make things happen. Not everybody are in business, like Oga has said, that the motive for every business settlement or establishment is profit oriented. Nobody can take that away anywhere. But there must be some human faces and the concern for the business you are going into. Okay, I want to be a psychiatric doctor now. I have seen a lot of people that are not good, you know, that are psychologically imbalanced everywhere. For that reason, I want to be a psychiatric doctor and I want to have a psychiatric home to be able to take care of this. You know, you have your intention for going into that kind of profession. But here in Nigeria, a musician with some money, he has gone to perform somewhere and he has made some few millions. The next thing is to go and buy 10 acres of land, call it an estate, tell people to come and buy, pay for the next 15, 20 months. At the end of the day, they are all over everywhere. I've been into property consultancy and we have established our organization several years, almost a decade ago. But people are always asking, when are you going to give us payment plan that will come and be paying 30,000 naira? I always tell them the truth that at the end of the day, by the time you default with the number of maybe 90, 60 days window that we have given, that if you default within this day, particular day, if it is 100 naira you have paid, be prepared to lose 5% of that 100 naira you have paid. That is the fact, but not everybody pronounce that to the people.
Mr. Fashoye, we must commend the current administration in the states, led by Prince Dapo Abiodun. I think we've seen some initiatives, you know, some schemes working.
Is that what? Your question?
I said we must commend the current administration in the states, led by Prince Dapo Abiodun, as regards, you know, reducing housing deficits in the states.
Thank you very much. In my opening speech, I started by saying, with my understanding of the industry and the workings we have had, I'm aware that the state government is working with Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria to ensure that state civil servants benefit from the scheme. Although in the time past, they are benefited. And the government is insisting they should benefit more. Obviously, when I made my contacts with Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, I realized that the bank has been able to fund about 20 estates within Ogun State, although most of the estates were in the Lagos, Mowe, axis. Obviously, it's within Ogun State, and it's still aiding the development of the economy of the state. But from the initiative of this present government, very soon around Ladin side, you will see some mortgages coming up now. They are already working with Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria to ensure that funds are released, and it's going to be on a revolving basis for the civil servant. So, and I'm trying to equally ask from the Ministry of Housing. They have other designs that any moment from now they will roll out. And of course, the bank, that is targeted towards this sustainable stuff that federal government is working on. So I want to believe before the middle of the year, a lot of people will have benefited through the state initiative and the partnership with Federal Mortgage Bank.
Okay, Mr. Oguntimu, let's look at mortgage now. We are trying to close the housing deficit in Nigeria and are using mortgage to close it. So what really is mortgage? Because people think when they hear mortgage, that means we are owing, we will. When you hear mortgage, that means people will come in and ask you to pay some amount, later you pay in installment. Is it that process?
To simplify it as a part of the misconception which you have painted, that people always take mortgage to be something else. To simplify the meaning of mortgage. Mortgage is a process whereby private property developers set up a residential estate and properties and put their own money down to build houses for people to come in some cases rent to buy or rent to own. Then the financial and mortgage institution will now come in to augment the effort of the property developer. If a property developer has put down 100 naira to build a 3-bedroom apartment, the mortgage bank is supposed to come in to refund part of that money back to the developer. Then the beneficiaries of the mortgage, the people that will go and buy those houses or rent them for a particular number of years, by the time they pay the rent, it becomes their own. They are now the one that will be paying to the mortgage institutions.
So mortgage is house itself?
Yes.
You must own it, not the land?
No.
Okay.
Mortgage is for a house.
Okay.
It's for a home. Most of the time when you see any mortgage institution, you will definitely see an icon showing a shelter.
I know.
Yes. So definitely there must be a synergy between mortgage institutions and private developers. So they work hand in hand so that the load of providing the shelter or the houses will not be on the property developer or brokers alone. The burden are going to be shared by property developers and the mortgage institutions. So the beneficiaries are the people that will now approach the mortgage banks now to say, okay, I can afford to be paying 50 kobo every month to be able to pay for this particular apartment, which you make it more convenient for them to own. Because like I said, like both of us kept saying, not everybody can afford to go and take 20, 15, 7, 5 million naira to build a decent
and befitting home.
Okay, Mr. Fashoyi, I'm asking this because there's this notion that if you go for a mortgage, that means you are not well-to-do. If you go for a mortgage, that means you are planning to ruin your own income yourself. Is mortgage beneficial?
Thank you for your question. For a good financial student, we agree with you that, we agree with me, let me use that word, that good financial engineering is your ability to ensure your fund work for you and give you return. You maximize your return. The higher your risk, the better your income and the spread of your investments. Mortgage gives you room to enlarge your cost. In the Christendom, they say enlarging your cost. With mortgage, it enables you to plan. For example, a good mortgage gives you a long-term tenure of 5, 6, 10, 30 years. I'm aware of NHF that is up to 30 years. And I'm aware of other products of 5 years, of 10 years in some other financial institutions that, of course, will leverage on your financial position. For example, you have 1 million naira. If you have 1/3 of that 1 million naira on housing, what happened to the rest of the income? You can spread your investment. Are you getting me? And because that 1/3 is just to service your immediate need. Are you getting me? With a mortgage of, let's say, out of 1 million naira per month, for example, you service your loan with, let's say, 100,000. You still have 900,000 to yourself. And with mortgage, once you have it for 10 years, maybe the first 2 years, that is when you feel the pains of the payment. After that 2 years, it's just part of you. Because at that point, you have paid your equity, if there is a need for that. And there are other products. And that is why the issue of enlightenment, education is very important. I think what is really causing the problem in Nigeria precisely is education. Our people need to ask questions. Our people need to read, avail themselves with this structure, ask questions, investigate, and find out which one is the truth. For example, most civil servants in Nigeria does not even know that when they are deducting their money, there's a benefit to it. Some of them, the first thing they will tell you if you are deducting their money is, it's usual now. That is how they started this scheme. And at the end of the day, we didn't benefit anything from it. But have you asked what happened to that scheme? So, the same way, somebody is developing an estate very close to your house. You never ask questions, you have concluded that guy has stolen money. That is why he's developing it. You never know, you never ask whether that guy has even gone somewhere to borrow money to come and buy that land, and believing that he will make some arrangement with some people to come and buy into it.
But apart from education, sorry for cutting, apart from education, this issue of mistrust from the civil servant and the government ought to be looked critically into. Since when we were very, very small, when we were growing up, that was when we have been seeing, apart from orientation, when you are deducting your money for a particular purpose, you must ask questions about it. Questions alone cannot, even to a very large extent, you don't even need to ask if there's genuine intention for those kind of deduction.
If the policy
are actually working. Okay. Since when I was young, that I was seeing my mother's payslip, I've been seeing 5 kobo, 50 kobo as being deducted as whatever, insurance, whatever. And my mom has left civil service for almost 15, 20 years now. Has he been able to access that money? Did she really has to write petition and begin to ask questions before accessing those funds? So the same thing goes for the housing fund and some other funds that are being deducted. We are national television in this way. So there must be genuine of intention for people to just realize that, okay, we are deducting this and it's going for this.
Okay, let him conclude his thought.
You see, for the fact that you have an idea, if you don't open yourself you may not really get to the root of the issues. For example, if you go there to register to vote, they will not register you. Have you gone there? And because until you get there and have your own personal experience, you may not be correct. It will amount to fallacy. For the fact that policy is put in place and you just accept it without asking questions, you may not know the benefits.
So, Mr. Fashion,
yes.
Who should we ask those questions?
God bless you. Human beings are the ones administering all these policies. And offices have been set up to take care of these responsibilities. We have a responsibility to ourselves to approach those institutions. Like I told you here, I went to the ministry on my own, asking questions. They didn't ask me to come. Why is it like this? Why is it like this? And they gave me answers. The answers might not be tenable to you, but to me, it's helping me.
But were you satisfied with the answer given?
To an extent. To an extent.
What about NHF funds that are deducted from civil servants' salary over the years? People that work for 30-something years and very insignificant portion of their salary are being taken away, like 50 kobo, 20 kobo, 100 naira that they can just afford to look away. 50 kobo, 100 naira, 200 naira for 36 years is a whole lot of money. How many offices can we point out to in Nigeria that, okay, this is National Housing Fund, as a retired civil servant, you can go there. You don't need to go there because they have your details.
Can I
they
say
have
something?
your address that they can contact you. Your money that is being domiciled also somewhere is right for you to come and benefit or take something from.
So you are saying we should have a running institution?
Institution and policy that can be
I say
implemented
something
properly.
Okay,
on this National Housing Fund that you just mentioned, obviously you have not asked questions in the relevant places. But I can tell you, as I'm seated here, that a lot of Nigerians are getting their money back from that fund. I can confirm that to you without missing word, that a lot of Nigerian retirees, particularly civil servants, get National Housing Fund refund before they are even their entitlement from their various state governments all over Nigeria. I'm aware as at last year, over 9 billion naira was refunded to Nigerians. This is not statistics on the face. They are there for people to confirm.
You can hear 9 billion naira being released from the federal government for whatever reason.
It's not federal government.
Implementation?
This is not federal government.
From the housing fund.
Sorry,
I can say that as a matter of fact, there are so many things that are conflicting as far as policy in Nigeria is concerned. And I will keep saying it. Government has a lot to do as far as housing deficit is concerned.
But Mr. Gunemu,
Yeah.
is it also not, looking at our mentality as a people, most low income and average earners prefer to build rather than buy, whereas in developed climes, people rather prefer to buy rather than build.
Because the process of buying a house in Nigeria is labyrinth, is cumbersome, is Herculean. So you cannot get money through whatever genuine means now, and you can now say how many institutions that you can now point to and say, okay, they have built houses for people at so point in time, and I want to go there and go and buy houses from them. You rather prefer, that is why you have a lot of shanty towns coming up in this century. Rather than developing, rather than having more developed residential estate, all we are having everywhere are shanties that people can just say, okay, I don't want to pay my landlord this year. I want to go and get, even if it's going to be 700 kilometers from where I'm working, I just have to go and get a land somewhere and begin to build my house. There's no institution. There's no institution. The percentage of institutions that can build house for you that you benefit from are very, very insignificant to what we are having as the reality on ground. That is just what I have to say as far as that is concerned. People preferring to build their houses. If it's going to be a bedroom and they will develop the remaining 2 or 3 bedrooms later on, just let me move in there. Point out, it's unfortunate that there's no calling at this particular section. You can see people that will buttress either my point or his point about refund of money. You just hear people or government policies or government agency releasing money through budget. You just hear the money in newspaper. and the implementation is just almost nowhere to be found. That's the reality.
Well, Mr. Fashoye, in the long run, which one do you think is cheaper, build or buy?
It depends on your perspective. You see, design is a very critical thing in development, in estate development. If your design is not complex, it may be easier for you to use your resources to fund it. But obviously, that is if you have the resources. But to me, like I said earlier, it's not always the wise thing to get, let's say I have 10 million naira and I use the whole 10 million in building. I would rather spread that 10 million on other investment. I would prefer to go through mortgage, personally, that's me. Okay. With my level of exposure, education, I would take mortgage to do whatever project I want to do because it pays me better.
Okay, as we gradually round off this segment of the discussion segment, what should be the solution now? We are talking about housing deficit in Nigeria. How should we bridge that gap? What should be the solution to it?
First thing for me is education. We need to really define what we required, what we want as a citizen. If, for example, government is coming up as a result of probably their own design, high-rise building, did I want that? No. Yes. If I have it, at what cost? These are things that education will address. And of course, the government, the institution, must be made functional. Like the ministry process, simplify. Local government makes it available. Accessibility to land itself should be made easy in such a manner that you know as a citizen, the moment you are 18 years and above, you can access the ministry, you apply for a land, and you'll be given. And all the process are well spelled out. There's no hidden agenda, hidden whatever fee we talk about. With this, investors are encouraged. Individuals look forward to it. Everybody wants to be home, house. So if that is the target, obviously government makes that environment available.
Okay. Mr. Ogodimo, what should be the solution to our deficit, especially in housing?
Sound and genuine intention from government and implementation of whatever policy, and I mean implementation, is a norm in Nigeria once again to have fantastic policies being publicized in newspaper, being written as script to Commissioner and Minister for Information to reel out to Nigerians. When you are listening to them, you will be marveling and you will be looking forward to the implementation of such. But what happens at the end of the day? We've had a lot of previous policies on so many things, so many myriad problems facing Nigerians. But how many of them has been implemented? Proper, genuine intention to tackle problems, be it housing, be it health policy, be it whatever, be it education, anything. There must be genuine implementation. There must be genuine concern before kind of conceiving those ideas, before coming to the public to tell them they want to do this, before raising people's hopes. And you don't just make all those policies and their institutions a kind of a cash cow for some individuals. Government can release several hundreds of billions of dollars for policies, but who are implementing those policies? Where are those monies going into? Are government actually investigating the 17, the 20, the 90 billion naira being released for a particular project? Are they properly implemented? Are they given to the beneficiaries? Do the beneficiaries who the monies are meant for, do they benefit from it? Are they the ones, or is it the MD or the director of a particular government agency are the ones sitting on those kind of money? So government can release any amount of money on paper and on radio through the media. So the implementation matters a lot.
Okay. We want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program today. Mr. Olufemi Fashoyin, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And Mr. Deji Ogundimo, you are very welcome. Thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
And to our viewers, you've listened to them. They've told us that housing deficit can be closed with a mortgage financing if you go in and assess it, if you go in and ask questions, if you go in and tell and ask people who are relevant on that field to help you. And they also said that government policies should encourage housing in Nigeria. On that note, we'll close this segment of the discussion segment. When we come back, another guest will be in the studio to discuss another topic. We'll see you later.
Ogundiji class time slot has changed. It will now be aired from 4:05 to 4:30 p.m. on Mondays to Fridays, from 6:05 to 6:30 p.m. on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and 5:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Thursdays.
For fresh